Welcome to another episode of Let's Get Fiscal, a chance to talk about all things related to budget and finance here in Charles County. I'm Doria Fleischer, your Community Engagement Coordinator. I'm thrilled to be joined again today with Jake Dyer from Fiscal and Admin Services. Thanks for being here, Jake.
Thanks for having me.
So, Jake, exciting conversation today with guests, yes?
Yes, well, at least for me.
I mean, I'm excited about it. I've been looking forward to this. So we have joining us today Sam Drury, who's our Deputy Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
And Michelle Frye, who's our Deputy Director of our Economic Development Department.
Happy to be here.
So we invited these guests in because we're at the point in the budget season where departments start thinking about what money they're going to need for the next fiscal year. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, so talk us through a little bit about timeline-wise. We're in October. Where are we? What are we doing? What are departments starting to gear up for?
So right now, we're kind of working in two different phases. We're working with departments on their capital improvement project needs. Yesterday we implemented a new software on for departments how to submit that information. We actually did a training session yesterday so departments know how to submit budget requests for their capital improvement needs. So we're working on that to get that information. That information is due back to us in October.
Okay.
And then we're also at the same time, my staff is going to be gearing up to start making recommendations on what by line item for each department on what their line item budget should be for next year. And we're kind of looking at each line item for looking to see if there's any one-time cost that was added in this fiscal year's budget that we need to exclude, and looking at trends, so making sure the electricity budget has enough monies to pay the bills and the fuel and so forth. And then once we are done, which is the end of October, we will then churn the budget over to the departments for the whole month of November and maybe I think the first week in December, where they would then look at those line items to make sure they agree with them. They have the opportunity to make changes with justification, but also to submit new requests that they need for next year's budget, new positions, new operating budgets, and so forth, new programs, anything they need to meet the needs that they are trying to commit to the community.
Excellent. All right. So I want to back up and just do a couple clarification of terms. When we say capital improvement,
yes.
I know we have a whole episode on it that I'm hoping people will go back and listen to, but give us just capital improvement means.
Capital improvement program for county government for these employees is major parks or renovations, new roads, road overlay program, new buildings, new infrastructure. So that's why we really wanted Sam here, because he has capital projects that he submits, and why we wanted Michelle here, because she does operating budgets.
Gotcha. So when I think capital improvement, it's really the big picture stuff that tends to last more than 1 year. Is that an accurate statement?
Correct. And those are the projects that we eventually will finance through taxes and bonds. It does last over years that we will then itemize, capitalize over a period of time.
It's the big ticket stuff.
Yes.
And then line item. You kept using that term, and I know for some people that makes perfect sense, but what is a line item in a budget?
So in our financial system, if you have, for office supplies, you have a line item in the system called office supplies, and you have a budget for that. So we look at that line item, that office supply budget, and make sure they have the funds in there to pay their bills. But it's not just office supplies. There's printing, there's electricity has its own line item, and so forth.
So when we say, if I came to you and I said, Jake, I need $1 million for media, you would say, okay, how is that broken into line items? And I would say, well, I need $100 for this, $1,000, and each line item is kind of its own category.
Correct.
Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
Excellent. All right, so let's get to the fun stuff. So Sam and Michelle, you guys are starting to think about your budgets, and I'd love to know, start please by and Sam, I'll start with you. In Recreation, Parks, and Tourism, who's involved staff-wise when we talk about budgets?
So what we've instituted actually this year is trying to get more staff collaboration from all levels. And we started back in July to go through and forecast out our current budget for this year. And in having those conversations, getting the feedback from them on what else they want to look at for next year.
Okay.
So we've started with our park managers, our coordinators at our community centers, our supervisors, and then we take that information, and again, the supervisors then start getting their list together, their wish list per se, to start itemizing, and for our department then to go through and start prioritizing what our request may be for the year. And it's kind of twofold, as Jake had mentioned. One is with our capital projects and our equipment. A lot of our parks equipment, we go through when we start doing inventories of the condition that it's in, how many hours, what the repair and maintenance costs may be, and start putting together those requests. But then also, again, our general operating, what we may need to help support that, whether it be additional staffing, additional resources, additional equipment, additional supplies. So again, all of that information we're starting to compile now. So then when we get our budget sheets from the budget office here in November, then we'll go through and start putting our requests together.
So it sounds interesting. I'm picturing when you talk about your inventory and the staff that are involved, I'm picturing everything from perhaps you have a lot of part-time staff, yeah?
Correct.
So everything from a part-time staff being like, I counted the number of soccer balls that we have, up to another employee saying like, I checked out the tractor that does the thing at the park that I don't understand what that. So we're talking like teeny items to really big stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And staff levels all involved.
Correct. Yes,
Excellent.
absolutely.
Okay.
And one of the things as well too, from a public standpoint, again, when we look at our capital improvement projects, a lot of that is driven off of information that we've gathered. We have a 5-year land preservation parks and recreation plan, LPPRP, that we
I hate
gather.
that acronym, Sam. It's so intense.
but we gathered that information, and again, that's the resources that we hear also from the community on what are the things that we need to plan for long term, and those are things that we put in within our request as well.
Excellent. Michelle, it sounds like you're a little bit different when I think about economic development. I don't really picture somebody going out and saying, how many soccer balls do we have in the game closet? Is that accurate?
Different but similar.
Okay.
So in economic development, we definitely focus on more of our operational side. And for us, it's definitely a collaborative approach, similar to Sam and their department. Our department is a little bit smaller, and everybody's role and responsibility plays into everything that we do. And we have some valuable insights that we get from every different level, from our coordinators all the way up to our director. Everybody brings something different to the table, and because of that, we're able to understand a little bit more about what they do and where our needs are and where the gaps are. And so for us, it's a big, senior leadership team plays a major role in kind of leading that charge, but everybody plays a collaborative role in everything we do in economic development, and the budget including
The budget. Awesome. Thank you. And Sam, you mentioned can I do it? LPPRP?
Correct.
Did I do it? Oh, phew, I did it right. You mentioned that as one of the tools that you use, but what other either resources or tools or data, what else do you use when you sit down and start saying to staff, what do we need? What are we going to do? What are we asking for?
Well, one of the things that we're looking at right now is trying to really formalize our asset management and inventories to be able to get a more collaborative effort that, again, takes into account the years that we have had these items. Again, the overall condition of things. What's the overall life expectancy? Again, we're running into that with some of our equipment at our parks. Again, playgrounds, for example, they're only expected to last 10 years. And so we can go through and put those requests in, and again, be able to plan for the future, to have these replacement costs within our budgets.
So not just what do we need this year, but what do we think we're going to need more this year than what could last one more year, kind of a balancing game, yeah?
Correct.
Gotcha. Michelle, in economic development, what tools or resources or data do you use to...
So you just hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Data is a huge thing for
All
us
right,
in
I'm
economic
ready.
development. We really kind of focus a lot of our planning and strategic planning and how we move forward on the data. Business is always moving, evolving, changing, and so we need to stay on top of the trends.
Okay.
We do that by monitoring our data from demographic data, commercial databases, workforce numbers, just to really kind of understand where we are, because once we understand where we are, we can understand how we can get there and move forward. And so for us, we use data exclusively for a lot of the different things that we do. Other things is direct feedback from our customers, from the businesses in the community. We get a lot of information and understanding of different needs and where our gaps are directly from the business community through a number of our different programs that we have and different initiatives that we do. So really, data is one thing. We get the feedback from the community, and the other is, we have formal reports and processes like our strategic plan that kind of have our short-term and long-term goals for the department. And those reports that we use data from the Department of Commerce, from our strategic partners, our circle of service partners, which is like the Chamber of Commerce, the College of Southern Maryland, the public schools. We play with all of them and kind of see where they're going to help us align with our goals for our budget and for our need for the community.
That's awesome. And it's interesting, Jake, you started by saying that, the first step is that Fiscal Admin Services goes in and kind of gives the high level expert view, right? We know electricity is going to go up. We know you spent too much on this. Like you kind of come in first and say, this is what we're thinking. And then the conversation goes back to the department of what are you needing. So this is a really interesting, I hate to use collaborative as such a buzzword, but this is the definition of a collaborative process. Yes?
Correct. Because once they submit their information to us in December, and then we start learning the request, go through the information, we actually have an internal meeting with each department in January so we can make sure we understand the request and make sure we got the request correctly. Because we got to make sure we understand it. And then from there, we can then present it to the county administrator's office and to the county commissioners to really make a good educated decision on these requests.
And I so appreciate hearing that because it sounds like it's a good balance of being fiscally smart, but also really hearing from your staff who are doing this, to use frontline work, like the staff are the ones implementing these services and the community who's using the services. We all have to kind of balance what we need with what we've got. Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome. So when I drafted this question, Jake was very hesitant that I ask you this because Jake said, I want to ask what's something that you're kind of excited about coming up in the budget or what's something you think might ask for. And Jake was like, no. What if they say something that doesn't get granted, which is a really fiscal and admin services guy kind of thing to say, right? Like, so we're going to ask it carefully and Jake's going to take a deep breath and figure that you're not going to say anything too scary. Sam, what's something in recreation, parks, and tourism that for the upcoming budget you're kind of excited about or something new that you know needs to be considered?
I think for us, one of the biggest things is really around our planning and construction. Again, we were able to and requested some additional staff to support that. This past year, we just purchased the Sears building and are going to be working on more community engagement for the feasibility study with that to create some additional design. And with that, then that next phase beyond this, again, will be ultimately construction. And then again, that's just one of the projects of several that we have. Again, I was just out at the Binsville Turf Field today. So again, additional construction and development within our department is really something we're excited about.
And cool stuff of like the old parks need to be, I shouldn't say old, the parks that have already existed need to stay being great. And then we've got new stuff coming in, yeah?
And there's some things that I know they're working on the older parks.
Yeah, I shouldn't have called them old. That's not fair. I shouldn't have done that.
Like we have in the budget this year that I know what might actually expand in future years is we're looking at the restrooms and renovating the restrooms. We also, there's funding in this year's budget that might carry over, I'm not sure, is repaving the golf cart path at the White Plains Golf Course. It's never been repaved from what I've been told.
We're going to be doing an accessibility study this year to be able to provide better access to all of our citizens. So we definitely have a lot of things that we're working on. And again, planning and construction is really a center around things right now.
Beautiful. My DEI heart loves hearing the word accessibility and making sure that our great recreation and parks facilities are available to everyone. So thank you. All right, Michelle, don't scare Jake, but what's something that's exciting or different or cool that you're thinking about for the budget this year?
So really for us, it kind of plays off of things that we have in our existing budget for this current year. So we're getting a new position in economic development, a senior economic development or senior commercial development manager that's really focused on the Western Technology Corridor. We have a lot of amazing things that are coming up over there, especially on the offset of stuff coming out of the base. And really this will allow us to have a position that focuses solely on the branding and really kind of the attracting and expanding the existing businesses that are in that community. And so for us, we're really excited about that.
So tell us, I love hearing about the Western Technology Corridor, but I'm not sure if all of our listeners and viewers know what that is. What is the Western Technology Corridor?
So it's a designation from the Board of County Commissioners. It's really for us in economic development, a marketing tool. It allows us to designate this specific area to try to attract businesses and try to expand the businesses that are in there for this specific sector in the county. So for us, it's technology, it's energetics, it's defense contractors. We're really looking to expand that presence over there, especially with a lot of the key assets that are already in the community over there. And again, from all of that off-base stuff that's going to be happening in Indian Head, in the town of Indian Head, and Bryan's Road, and Maryland Airport, we're excited to have an opportunity to really expand the assets over there. And so that's one of our big goals is with this position to really focus and target that area and make sure that it has all the tools in place and we're getting the right businesses in there for them to be successful.
Awesome. And there's maybe even somebody in our listening, viewing audience right now thinking, absolutely, that might be an interesting job
Stay
for
tuned.
me. So yeah, keep looking. We always are excited to have people who want to work for Charles County government.
Yes, and I get excited by Michelle doing that because if we get we attract more businesses into Charles County, that really lowers the demand for us to provide on revenues from our residents. And we can get more revenues from our commercial company businesses, and then that allows the county budget to keep growing, and it allows us to keep funding all these great requests that from our RPT and economic development, and as well as our other departments, and the school board and the sheriff's office, because they get most of their budget comes from us.
So revenue coming in is always a good thing.
Yes.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you guys want to talk about when it comes to how departments think about their budgeting? Is there anything else you'd want our viewers, listeners to know?
If I could add, because we're
Please.
adding a new thing this year,
Okay.
which will help them decide, also as a tool in their toolbox to
ready.
figure out what their budget requests are, is that we're going to do another survey coming out in October to really, it's going to be department specific. So we're asking departments to give us feedback on how to draft the survey, but to ask the residents to say, okay, under recreation, parks, and tourism, these are the things that we're looking for in next year's budget, which will then allow Sam and his leadership team to decide what submissions should come back to me.
I'm super excited about that project. I think it's a great way to hear directly from our residents about, I think sometimes our residents aren't even sure what each department actually offers, what service is connected to that. So I think by putting it in plain language and giving them a chance to say like, oh, well, I actually do want a better paved road around White Plains, then we know what they're looking for.
Yes.
I love it. Awesome. Well, I appreciate all of you being here with us today for another episode of Let's Get Fiscal. Sam Drury from Recreation, Parks, and Tourism, Michelle Frye from Economic Development Department, and of course, Jake Dyer from Fiscal and Admin Services.
Thank you.
If you would like to go back and listen to previous episodes of Let's Get Fiscal to get more information about some of the terms and processes that you heard described here, you can always find those episodes and get caught up. And of course, there will be more episodes in the future about all things related to budget and finance. Let's Get Fiscal here in Charles County. Thanks so much, Charles County. Take care, stay safe, and stay engaged.
Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast and want to hear more, search Charles County Government on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And be sure to like and subscribe. We're also available on YouTube. Search Charles County Commissioners. And stay connected for all county news, information, and programs by visiting www.charlescountymd.gov/stay connected.